Chapter 2342, Jealousy 5. Gu Shijio felt weak, so she wanted to return her chair and take a rest, but Mr. Zhu's injury was quite severe. He could barely hold himself up. Di Fui's final strike almost took Mr. Zhu's life, as seen from the fractures on the left side of his chest. The broken bones almost punctured his heart, so he dared not move and could only wait for Gu Shijio to help him. Gu Shijio said nothing, but proceeded to set the broken ribs. She was weak, but her physical condition did not affect her skills. Soon, 3 fractured ribs were set back into place. She then applied some medicine to help the wounds heal better. Her medicine worked like magic. In only about an hour, agility returned to Mr. Zhu. Although the wounds still hurt, he could walk freely as if nothing had happened. I did not expect to see him here. I never knew that he was willing to go so far all for his beloved sister. Humph. I will not make the devil-quenching clothing for him anymore, so he has no way to do business with those from the outside. He spoke with a tone of displeasure. Fine, let's not talk about him. Have you got the herbs that I need? Gu Shijio interrupted his ranting. Of course. Mr. Zhu quickly showed her his collection. Gu Shijio examined the herbs and realized that he really did his best to fulfill her request. Every herb was the best of its kind, and he got a sufficient amount. Relieved, Gu Shijio kept the herbs. Aren't you going to make the pill? Mr. Zhu was perplexed. That can wait. The toxins in my body are largely gone. I will save these herbs for later. I shall wait until I have the guiding herb before I perform the alchemy to make the antitoxin. By that time, I will make sure that all the toxins in my body will be detoxified. What did you mean by the guiding herb? You should have told me about it yesterday. I would have got it for you by now. Mr. Zhu was surprised. The guiding herb is not something that you can get within a day or two. It can only be found in a very dangerous place. Even if you manage to get it, the entire journey will last about 2 weeks, Gu Shijio answered with a tight smile. The herbs that Mr. Zhu found for here were fundamentally used as antitoxins. Even without Di Fui's help in getting rid of the toxins in her body, she could always make another pill with the help of Mr. Zhu, which would have the same effect as Di Fui's method of detoxification. However, without Di Fui, she would certainly be dead by now under the attack of the snake. She was still grateful for his timely arrival. Mr. Zhu finally understood. What is the guiding herb? The heart of the silver ring crocodile. With a frown, Mr. Zhu was troubled. He knew about the silver ring crocodile. They lived in the most dangerous and poisonous swamps. The poisonous swamps were thousands of miles wide, filled entirely with poisonous gas that allowed no animals to pass through. No other animals were able to survive in the swamp, except for those that were equally deadly. No humans were able to get close, too. Although Mr. Zhu liked to mess around with different poisons all the time, the poisonous swamp still remained as a headache to him. Is there any other way to detoxify the toxins in your body? Mr. Zhu was determined to find another method. No. Gu Shijio dismissed it with a shake of her head. In that case, I will do all I can to get the other half of the antitoxin from Yuan. Mr. Zhu had a feeling that this would be an easier alternative. Gu Shijio disagreed. I have studied the poison. The 2 separate portions must be taken at the same time. Otherwise, the other half of the antitoxin will be useless. Maybe it will make the situation even worse. What if you fail to detoxify all the toxins? I will have 1 year left to live. Gu Shijio calmly explained the harsh truth of her short lifespan. Chapter 2343. The interrogation. Mr. Zhu was shocked but remained determined to help. I will go with you, he offered, with a hint of enthusiasm. Gu Shijio was grateful for his kind offer. Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Zhu smiled at her and comforted her. Don't thank me. It is not all because of you. I have my own plans, too. The deadly swarm is at least 1,000 miles away from here. If I go with you, apart from keeping you safe, I also get to learn about the art of healing and all sorts of array formations. Gu Shijio found his honesty quite adorable. She observed his bewitching eyes and asked, What is your real name? She could not keep calling him Mr. Zhu, now that he was already her disciple. Zhu Duqing. The name was perfect for him, as his name literally meant that he was the only bamboo that was green It was suitable for a man who lived alone in a garden full of dead bamboos. Yuan was on her bed. Sweat broke out all over her forehead. The universal net had left streaks of red marks across her skin. The moment she realized that things were going bad for her, she quickly covered her face with her hands. The marks were not particularly obvious, except for the ones on the back of her bare hands. The wounds were not severe, but caused her a lot of pain. She had been freed from the universal net for a while now, but the pain did not seem to go away. Misfortunes abounded for her. Just when the pain started to fade, Mr. Zhu suddenly appeared and inflicted torture toward her, thus leaving her with 2 fractured bones. Moreover, he even cut her arms with the Immerse sword. She took out 2 pills and swallowed one. The other one was, unfortunately, taken away by Mr. Zhu. As soon as the man left, she started smiling in a smug way. The Immerse sword used to be free of poison. She purposely applied the poison at the tip of the sword to make Gu Shizhou suffer. After centuries of preparation, she could finally use it. The poison was made on the basis of her hatred, as a result of hundreds of years of resentment that she had against Gu Shizhou. She finally made Gu Shizhou suffer. She did not want Gu Shizhou to have what she could not have. In fact, there were really 2 portions to the antitoxin pill. One was taken away by Mr. Zhu, while the other was specially made only for her. When Mr. Zhu left her room, he accidentally alerted the guards at the door. When they came into her room to check, she was already covered in bloodstains all over her body. Panicked, they quickly informed the Devil King and summoned a doctor. Di Fui got to her door quicker than she had expected. Yuan listened attentively from the inside of her room with a throbbing heart. They were telling him about how badly she was harmed. She thought that he would come into her room. Unfortunately, the long wait had shattered her hope. The doctor finally arrived and went into her room before Di Fui did. She threatened the guards, saying that she would only allow the doctor to examine her wound if they told her where the Devil King went. The guards dared not go against her will. She was, after all, the Devil King's most beloved sister. They said, "The Devil King came to ask about the man's features and your condition before he left. You should be out there looking for the man for your revenge, I suppose." The man, who she referred to as her brother, was scarily cold. She saved his life, but could not change him or make his heart feel something he would not. He gave her the best life and provided her with a noble status, but he never let her get any closer. She had been around for a few centuries, so she could tell what he was thinking. She could understand why Di Fui made her the princess. He needed her to be one of his tools. Although Di Fui had done many terrible things to outsiders, he had always been quite open and frank with her. Chapter 2344. The Interrogation 2. Before he made her the princess, he had told her very frankly that he had many enemies that would use her to make him surrender and that she would not be safe. He asked if she was willing to take the risk. If she refused to, he would help conceal her identity and provide her with a comfortable life in the most secured and picturesque place in the Devil Kingdom. In the end, she chose to become his princess. She got to spend more time with him. In return, he treated her well with care and respect. To the outsiders, she was his most cherished, beloved princess. Never had she received the amount of kindness and care before. Therefore, she was willing to take the risk and lure his hidden enemies into every trap. She watched as he got rid of them, one by one. She thought their relationship would last forever. She thought that one day, he would be touched by her love. Never had she expected to see Gu Shizhou again. What had Gu Shizhou done? What had she done to deserve his heart? Yuan wanted Gu Shizhou dead in the most painful way possible. She had been on her bed for 2 nights and was feeling quite lethargic. Suddenly, she saw the shadow of a man at the door. Someone then entered her room. The room temperature used to be a little chilly until the man appeared. He carried strong waves of heat around him as he entered the room. The temperature quickly rose a few degrees. She opened her eyes and trembled a little as soon as she recognized the man. Brother. The man was Di Fui. He stood by her bed and talked down to her with a tight smile. Yin Qing Luo, I'm not your brother. Your real brother is Yun Yanli, right? His eyes were fixed at her blankly. Taken by surprise, Yuan looked up and was immediately intimidated by his colossal aura. The stress was unbearable. She stammered. You knew it all along, didn't you? How long can you keep the truth from me, Madame Yun? Di Fui taunted. Yun Qingluo clenched her fists and defended herself firmly. I did not mean to lie to you. I only stayed by Yi Ling's side as Madame Yun. He was not my real husband. Husband or not, it is none of my business, Di Fui interrupted. Yun Qingluo's face grew pale as she looked at him with a guilty conscience. Brother, I know that I have lied to you. It is my fault for not telling you about my background, but it never meant to hurt you. I only want what is best for you and have never done anything to hurt you. Di Fui looked at her blankly and said, You bribed the spy and asked him to tell me that Gu Shijiao and Yun Yanli were having a great time together and that they were happily traveling from city to city. Was that for my own good? Yin Qingluo did not know what to say. Her face was as pale as a sheet now. They were indeed talking and laughing together. In fact, they were in many different cities together as well. Yun Yanli was looking for you, and Gu Shijiao went along with him. You knew that Yun Yanli planned to attack you, and yet there was no way you could leave the Devil Kingdom. I did not want to worry you, so I chose to hide the truth. It was for your own good. You asked for 2 sets of devil-quenching clothing from Mr. Zhu on my behalf, and secretly sent them out of the Devil Kingdom to Yun Yanli. Was it for my benefit as well? Yun Qingluo kept quiet. You used my name and requested for 1,000,000 devil coins from Guardian Ling to build a secret chamber full of traps. You put people into the chamber in order to practice your sorcery. Was that for my own good? Pale-faced, Yun Qingluo said nothing more. She had been very careful in the execution of her every plan. She did not even tell her closest servant, so she never expected that one day Di Fui would find out about it. Chapter 2345, The Interrogation 3. Di Fui knew it all along, but never questioned her. Yin Qingluo, I did not want to question you because you were the one who saved my life. I did not want to embarrass you. But did you really think that you could hide the truth from me? Di Fui was immediately informed as soon as she sent the devil-quenching clothing away. She was taking the opportunity to lure Yun Yanli into the Devil Kingdom. As for the secret chamber, he had been there before, but the prisoners there were mostly Yun Yanli's followers that were of little value. Di Fui did not really mind, as long as the prisoners were not from the Devil Kingdom. He only requested his men to keep an eye on the place. Yin Qingluo, you are Yun Yanli's sister. What is your motive to be by my side? There is no motive. He and I do not share any common goal. Panicked, Yin Qingluo looked up and quickly explained, Only a part of his sister's soul has reincarnated into my body. He never thought of me as his sister, only a tool. Di Fui looked at her quietly and said nothing more. Hastily, Yun Qingluo continued with a red face. He never cared about me. He only wanted me to work for him without the slightest regard for my safety. I did not want to be one of his men. I had no choice. There was no one I could count on in the Shura world, so I had to do as he told. Yin Qingluo, you're not telling the whole story, are you? You said you were the incarnation of part of his sister's soul, so he could use you. How did you end up in Starry Crescent Land, then? I heard that you had a great life there. Yin Qingluo trembled in fear. I first reincarnated in Starry Crescent Land. He noticed the momentary blind panic in her eyes, but she calmed down almost immediately. That was really you. You were also named as Yin Qingluo, right? How dare you? I knew you had put me into trouble many times before, Di Fui said nonchalantly. He tried to make it sound very casual, but deep down, he was anxious for an answer. His remark came as an utter surprise to her. The words echoed in her ears while she desperately tried to come up with an explanation. She replied weakly, I had never done so. I have always liked you. Eagerly, Di Fui was still waiting for an answer, with both his fists tightly clenched underneath his sleeves. He was tensed, but he never showed it. Like me? I think that it was my identity that you liked. After all, I used to be so superior and powerful back then. Yin Qingluo did not think it through and answered right away, No, it was not like that. Even if you were not celestial masters back then, I would still fall for you. I like you for who you are, not your status. Celestial Masterswa? He was Celestial Masterswa. He was the man that should have been forgotten by the world, but not by Gushijio. He was the man that she had been tirelessly searching for the past 2 centuries. He never knew that he was known as Celestial Masterswa in his previous life. Difui's fingers went icy cold. His heart was throbbing, but he tried to stay calm and look casual. Yin Qingluo, you seem to remember a lot about me. You knew it was I, so you chose to save my life a year ago, didn't you? How could you lie to me when I was without any memory? Is this what you do to the people you like? Yin Qingluo would never tell him more than she should. For many times, Difui tried to interrogate her, but to no avail. This time, he took the opportunity to ask her more while she was injured. Also, she was emotionally unstable because of the punishment that Difui made her suffer. She chose to tell him the truth, as she thought that Difui had finally recalled his past. His calm expression and temperament had clearly misled her. Chapter 2346. The Interrogation. 4. Yin Qingluo bit on her lips. Difui understood her thoughts, so there was no point in hiding anymore. She continued, Yes, I had never expected that you would be here in the Shuro world. The moment I saw you, I fell for you all over again. I chose to fake my death and disregard all consequences just to keep you alive. Tears started rolling in her eyes. Celestial Masterswa, I have never stopped loving you, from my previous life until today. She finally addressed him like how she used to before. Her hand trembled as she tried to reach out for Difui. She was longing for him, so much so that she was going crazy. She wanted to pull his robes to get his attention. Unfortunately, Difui never gave her a chance. He took a step back to avoid Yin Qingluo from touching him. Unsteadily, she almost fell from the bed. I never liked you. I never did. Difui added, You are no different than all the other women to me. Yin Qingluo, I know that you have saved my life because of your personal interest. I will now offer you another chance, and if you do not take it seriously, I will make sure you suffer a painful death. What chance? Yin Qingluo looked up at him. Difui reached out his hand and demanded, Give me the other half of the antitoxin. Yin Qingluo was surprised. Have you seen her? Of course. How could she still be alive? Yin Qingluo murmured. She will live longer than you do. Difui's face turned furious. If it were not for the second half of the antitoxin, he would have hit Yin Qingluo and sent her flying in the air. He was a skilled doctor. When he was reading Gu Zijia's pulse, he noticed that her heart was surrounded by some very strong toxins. He tried many ways to detoxify the toxins, but to no avail. All he could do was to secure and stop the toxins from spreading around her body, so she would not be in pain and would still be able to move. He was still quite worried about her condition, so he decided to give Gu Shiju the pill that he got from his father. The pill worked as an elixir of life in times of danger. The pill was powerful enough to bring the dying back to life, even for those that were already dead. Hence, it would definitely be very helpful for Gu Shiju. Although the pill could not help detoxify the toxins, it could protect her vessels from being eroded by the toxins. When Gu Shiju was first poisoned, her nervous system was greatly affected to the point beyond repair. Even when the toxin was finally detoxified, she would lose all of her spiritual power and the ability to practice kung fu in the future unless she decided to reincarnate into another body. However, with the elixir of life, all that could be avoided. Difui was not very knowledgeable in terms of poisons, but his mother, Ning Xiuma, was the great devil who was just as skillful as Gu Shiju in that area. She was worried that Difui would one day be harmed. So, she wrote him a book with a compilation of many different poisons. The compilation covered and contained everything that he needed to know about the use of poisons and the different methods of detoxification. After studying the book comprehensively, he was considered an expert in the use of poisons too. Thus, when he examined Gu Shiju, he quickly came to the realization that the antitoxin that she took from Mr. Zhu was only half of the cure. There should be another half. That was the reason why he quickly returned to the palace. As for the fight between him and Mr. Zhu, he was angry about what Gu Shiju said to him. He went all the way for her, and yet she thought that what he did was for Yuan. Since she had already misunderstood his intention, he decided to make her believe whatever she chose to believe. He wanted to let her know that the only way to get revenge for Yuan was to break the ribs of Mr. Zhu the same way he did to her. That was what Di Fui would usually do. There was another reason for the fight. Mr. Zhu had feelings for his newfound master, Gu Shijio. He had to make sure that the man was injured and would not be able to do anything to Gu Shijio, even if he wanted to. She would be safe. Last but not least, he had always wanted to give that man a lesson. Now he finally had a chance. Chapter 2347. Are you so happy? Yin Qingluo gave him a bottle, carrying some pills. This is the other half of the cure. Why did she surrender it so quickly? Di Fui took a sniff and was somewhat certain that it was the right bottle of pills. However, something was not right. He demanded, "Give me both portions of the cure." Hesitantly, Yin Qingluo gave him the other half, as requested. The bottles were red and green. Without warning, Di Fui took the Immerse sword in his hand and said, "Pardon me." He then made a cut on her wrist. It was a gentle cut, but was enough to make her bleed. She was poisoned. "How many pills do you need?" he asked. Yin Qingluo closed her eyes and answered calmly, "One each." Di Fui gave her 2 pills. She first took the red one, then the green one. Next, she meditated to put the pills into effect. Di Fui kept the bottles and observed her quietly. After a while, Yin Qingluo opened her eyes and met Di Fui's intense gaze. "Just like that?" he asked. Yin Qingluo responded with a firm nod. Di Fui had to read her pulse to see if she was telling the truth. He did not touch her skin but placed his fingers right on top of her sleeve. From the readings of her pulse, the toxins in her body seemed to have been detoxified. The pills seemed to be reliable. Relieved, Di Fui threw another stern look at her. "You'd better not lie to me. Otherwise, I will make sure that you suffer the consequences." He then left swiftly. Yin Qingluo closed her eyes as he left. She seemed quite depressed about his attitude. Moments later, a smile appeared on her face as she broke into hysterical laughter. Worried that she might alarm the guards, she decided to keep quiet. The look in her eyes was completely malicious. She knew exactly that Di Fui was on his way to send the second half of the cure to Gu Shijio. However, it was already too late for her to take the second pill. The pill would not work as a cure. Instead, it would push her another step closer to death. She would surely be dead if she took the other half of the pill. Yin Qingluo was not happy about how Di Fui treated her, especially after all that they had been through together. It was her revenge for the betrayal of this heartless man. She wanted to make sure that he watched as the woman he loved slowly died in front of him. She started laughing hysterically as she murmured on, "Are you so happy?" A voice suddenly emerged. Utterly surprised, Yuan turned and saw Di Fui standing at her door. She paused to see his silhouette. She could not see his expression, but could obviously feel the pressure that he exerted. Yin Qingluo's face turned pale. You. Di Fui walked into the room at a slow pace. "You thought that I had already left?" "Yin Qingluo, I have warned you before not to play any tricks." "It looks like you refused to be convinced until you were faced with grim reality." Yin Qingluo had nothing to hide, for all her plans had been exposed. "Kill me. I will happily die, as long as the woman joins me in death." She had been thinking about killing herself for a while now. She believed that he would not be able to do anything against someone who was so ready to die. Di Fui thought about what she said for a moment and burst out laughing. Smilingly, he gave her a warning. "Yin Qingluo, I did not know you had plans to take your own life. Don't worry, I will let you know what is worse than death." Chapter 2348. Was he reluctant to let her go? He raised his hand and immediately cast a wizardry barrier around her room. The wizardry barrier was soundproof, so no one else would be able to hear her, no matter how she shrieked or screamed in agony. He took another step forward while Yin Qingluo looked at him fixedly. There was a mixed sign of pain and anxiety in her eyes. She knew that her insolence had greatly displeased him. He was about to make her suffer. If he did, they would definitely come into contact. She was willing to endure the suffering if it was the only way that she got to touch him. About an hour later, Yun Qingluo lay almost lifelessly on the bed. Her body kept trembling every now and then. There was no external injury on her body. Di Fui only attacked some specific acupuncture points until every inch of her bones started to ache. She felt as if countless ants were crawling and chewing on her bones. The pain was beyond her endurance, and the itchiness was beyond compare. She wanted to end her agony. She wanted to scream out loud and roll around in pain, but she was too weak even to move. She could only accept the fate of her suffering, helplessly. Di Fui sat beside her and started playing chess. He paid no attention to Yun Qingluo's groan of despair and continued moving each piece. Before his game even finished, Yun Qingluo already surrendered herself. I will tell you what you need to know. The 2 pills must be taken at the same time in order to be effective. She added by describing some characteristics about the poison and finally told the truth under Di Fui's intense gaze. The main ingredient is the goo poison that I made with the blood from my heart. Under the current circumstance, she will need to make the antitoxin with a few different herbs, in addition to the heart of the silver ring crocodile. Troubled, Di Fui knew about the silver ring crocodiles that lived in the poisonous swamps. It was difficult to enter the area. What troubled him more was that the swamps were not found in the Devil Kingdom, but in the outside world. All right, I am done. If my life is all you ask for, take it now. Yun Qingluo closed her eyes and told him firmly. She knew him well enough to know that he would not let her go easily this time. She waited for that one deadly strike, but it never happened. She opened her eyes and was surprised to find that Di Fui was looking at her calmly, without any intention to move. He was still there, looking rather pensive. You? She started to feel some faint hope. Was he reluctant to let her go? Di Fui answered calmly. You were not telling the entire truth. Yun Qingluo, you know all about my tricks. If you die, I will be sure to confine your soul and torture you some more. The pain will be even greater than what you had just now. Are you sure that you are ready to challenge my limits? Yun Qingluo felt hopeless this time. How? How could you tell? Di Fui continued to observe her in silence. She finally gave up and told Di Fui everything that he wanted to find out. You are right. You cannot simply use the heart of any silver ring crocodile as the guiding herb. You need to find the one that is controlled by my goo poison and take its heart. How can I find that specific silver ring crocodile? Yun Qingluo closed her eyes and confessed. When you are in the poisonous swamps, take the blood of my heart and pour it down at a specific location. The beast will present itself to you. Di Fui remained quiet. It was a rather ordinary carriage. A black donkey was pulling the carriage. Only its 4 hoofs were covered in a contrasting tone of white. The donkey had its own character. If it was whipped or mistreated, it would get in a rage and stop moving. Chapter 2349. Was he keeping a close watch on me? It gave the coachman a grotesque grimace, as if threatening him. The coachman dared not trigger the donkey and let it run freely as it pleased. Although the donkey was hard to get along with, it possessed great strength and speed, better than any other horse. When it ran at full speed, a trail of marks would be left on the ground. The external part of the carriage was rather ordinary, but the interior was something else. It was beautifully covered in brocades and soft cushions. There was a hidden compartment used to keep some food. Also, the carriage was completed with some blankets, a small table, and a chessboard on the table. There were even some fruits and snacks to accommodate any guests. Needless to say, the carriage had everything that one needed. The carriage was spacious enough for the guests to sit or lie down comfortably. The only disadvantage was that all of the items in the carriage were in different shades of green, even decorated with the drawings of some emerald bamboos. When the carriage was moving, the leaves of the bamboo shook along as if gusts of wind had just blown by. Gu Shijio was slouched in the carriage. Looking at the drawings, she felt as though she was immersed in the emerald green of a wide bamboo landscape. It was rather cozy and windy in the carriage with a faint scent of bamboo trees. Her wounds were recovering well. Part of her spiritual power had just returned, but she could not simply use her power, as it might trigger the remaining toxins in her body. After getting her out of the desert, Zhu Duqing arranged a comfortable seat in the carriage for her and got her out of the Devil Kingdom. He could use the transmitting door freely to go anywhere as he wished. All he needed to do was to open the door and take a leap. However, it did not work quite well after leaving the Devil Kingdom. Furthermore, it required a great amount of his spiritual power to activate the door each time he wanted to use it. Although his fractures had been fixed, he still needed to rest. It was not advisable to activate the transmitting door every time he needed it. After a brief discussion, they both agreed that they should use the carriage instead. His carriage used to look very stylish, but Gu Shijio felt that the carriage should be more low-key and modest. After all, they were two injured persons venturing into the poisonous swamps. It would be helpful if the carriage looked more ordinary, so they changed it. The donkey needed no changes. Many people traveled with their donkeys, too, so it was normal to use a donkey for their carriage. At first, Gu Shijio was surprised to find out that Zhu Duqing had accepted an ordinary donkey to lead his rather elegant carriage. She finally realized that it was actually a majestic donkey. When it started running, it ran even faster than her Cloud Leopard King. It had another special ability, which was its understanding of the human language. After a detailed explanation about the destination, the donkey would find its own route to get there. There was no need for any guidance. Zhu Duqing wanted to spend some time with Gu Shijio in the carriage. They could play a game of chess, or even talk to get to know each other better. However, Gu Shijio told him that their trip had to be as low-key as it could possibly be. It would be rather odd to see a carriage without a coachman, so he had to be outside to play the role of a coachman. Thus, Zhu Duqing had to stay outside. To fully emphasize his role as a coachman, he would sometimes hit the donkey like any other ordinary coachman would, which was something that the donkey did not appreciate. The donkey was not happy about his lack of trust. Was he keeping a close watch on it? The man must be an idiot, the donkey thought. Therefore, the donkey would often show its temper and give Zhu Duqing a rebuff whenever necessary. As for Zhu Duqing, he was holding a whip instead of his goose feather fan like he usually would. He felt a little bitter, as there was a beautiful lady sitting in his carriage, but he had no chance to approach her. Chapter 2350. The Devil King came to the rescue. The outside world remained just the same. The rain of blood would still happen every 10 days. The forests were still occupied, full of mad beasts. Gu Shijio finally realized how amazing her ride was as it journeyed through the different areas. When they were moving through the streets, the carriage was just a normal carriage. When they arrived at a place with little trace of human activity or a place without any proper paths, the carriage would extend its wings and fly into the air as guided by the majestic donkey. The donkey would use its qing gong to guide the carriage through the air. Gu Shijio was not in a hurry to get rid of the toxins, so there was no rush. They would travel during the day and rest at night. There were not many cities left, so sometimes they would not be able to make it to the city and would take a rest in the wild instead. In order to keep them safe from the wild animals, Gu Shijio would use the trees and stones as a fence to build an array formation. Then, she would set up 2 separate tents for them to rest. June was the month with the hottest days of the year. The tents were really stuffy. It was time for Zhu Duqing to show Gu Shijio how great he was with the use of his devices. He installed a ventilator that he made on top of every tent. The ventilator was like an electrical fan in the modern days with rotating blades to create a current of air for cooling. There were some benefits for Zhu Duqing to follow Gu Shijio around. For example, Gu Shijio would explain the key features of the array formation every time she built one. When they were traveling, she would invite Zhu Duqing into the carriage whenever she saw him exhausted. They would then play a game of chess or enjoy the fruits that Gu Shijio had with her. Every time he went inside the carriage to take a rest, Gu Shijio would stay outside to look after the donkey. Oddly enough, the donkey did not like Zhu Duqing very much, but was very pleased to have Gu Shijio around. Whenever it saw her, it would run fast and smooth, or sometimes whip its tail to help Gu Shijio chase away the mosquitoes. Whenever Gu Shijio complimented the donkey, it would raise its head, look back at her with a charming gaze, and proudly acknowledge her kind words with a firm nod. The donkey was probably attracted by Gu's Zygius beauty. Thus, it was determined to protect her. Gu Shijio found the donkey to be quite interesting. She went into the carriage and told Zhu Duqing about it. Perplexed, he responded with a tight smile. The donkey has always been very friendly and patient with girls. When it sees a female donkey, it will always let the female go first. It clearly had good manners. Gu Shijio was quite impressed. She took out a bottle of wine from her storage bag and sat herself comfortably at the coachman's seat. She shook the bottle and asked the donkey, "My fellow donkey, would you like to have a taste of the wine?" The donkey responded with a long growl that was as loud as the sound of a dragon. Gu Shijio was shocked by its sudden exclamation. The donkey was growling loudly as if saying, I want, I want, I want. Normally, a donkey would only be able to make a low, guttural sound that was somewhat irritating to the ears. However, the majestic donkey was unlike any other donkey. Its sound was rather pleasing and melodious, as if a tenor soloist that could sing high notes with ease. Zhu Duqing walked out of the carriage and said, "Don't give it any wine. It drinks excessively every time and will not run another mile when it is drunk. Our journey will be delayed." Convinced, Gu Shijio no longer felt appropriate to offer it the wine. Unexpectedly, the donkey suddenly swept its tail across her hand and flung the wine away. Chapter 2351. The Devil King came to the rescue. 2. Gu Shijio was unprepared, so the bottle of wine went flying in the air. Swiftly, the majestic donkey raised its head and grabbed the bottle with its mouth. It popped it open and drank every bit of the wine. Gu Shijio was astonished. Troubled, Zhu Duqing complained, "I am afraid that our journey has to stop here for today." Gu Shijio did not really mind the delay. Let's call it a day. Exhausted, she had to take a rest in the carriage. After being poisoned, she would get tired very often. With her current condition, there would not be any use even if they made it to the swamp early. Therefore, Gu Shijio felt that it was better for her to meditate to have a better recovery. Also, the spiritual stones came in handy to increase her spiritual power at that time. After drinking the entire bottle of wine, the donkey threw the empty bottle away and made a long, doleful cry before running forward at full speed. It had never been so fast throughout its entire time of service. Zhu Duqing was unprepared for the sudden launch and almost fell off from the carriage. "What madness is this?" The donkey did not even bother to reply. It increased its speed instead. In the end, the donkey managed to cover a total journey of 800 miles in one shot, more effective than any other time before. Moreover, they were traveling in the wild without any proper streets. Its speed was very impressive, but it caught some unnecessary attention. While the donkey was speeding, 5 giant birds suddenly appeared and blocked its way with their large, widespread wings. The donkey had to come to a sudden stop, which almost threw Gu Shijio out of her seat. She steadied herself with the handle and quickly looked out of the window. There was a loud, demanding voice. "Who are you? Where are you heading to?" Surprised, Gu Shijio recognized the voice of the young palace master. They had met before in the upper bound. She knew that the young palace master was one of Yun Yanli's followers. Never had she thought that they would run into each other so soon. Gu Shijio and Yun Yanli had not met for almost a month. As soon as she left the Devil Kingdom, she received a directed audio from Yun Yanli, asking for her location, as she had been out of touch for a while, and he was worried. She did not want to uncover his deceit just yet, so she continued their conversation casually, saying that she was not quite in the mood to meet and that her directed audio spell was not working very well. She lied that she was now in Luohua City, having some drinks with her friends. Gu Shijio had many friends in Luohua City. She once reminded them to help her patch up a lie whenever someone asked for her whereabouts. Her friends were superb, so she trusted them very much. She was not even worried, despite knowing that Yun Yanli would definitely send his men to ask her friends about her whereabouts. From the call, she could tell that Yun Yanli seemed to be quite occupied. After a quick chat, he ended the call by saying that he would see her soon to have a couple of drinks together. He made sure that she was safe before he hung up. To Gu Zijia's surprise, she never expected that she would run into the young palace master in the middle of nowhere. The young palace master knew about Gu Shijio. In fact, just yesterday, Gu Shijio had a call with Yin Yanli and told him that she was staying in Luo Hua City. Today, she bumped into the young palace master at a place that was 4,000 miles away from where she was supposed to be. No one would believe that she would travel that far in only one day. Once the young palace master found out that Gu Shijio was in the carriage, she would definitely tell Yin Yanli about it. His suspicion was the last thing Gu Shijio needed at the moment. Gu Zijia's face was not disguised, and it was too late to do it now. Meanwhile, Zhu Duqing was a narcissist who was obsessed with his looks. Although he was keen to learn the facial disguise technique, he was not willing to change his features. He thought that he was the most handsome man in the world. His robes were easy to recognize, too. As soon as he stopped the carriage, the young palace master immediately knew his identity. Chapter 2352. The Devil King Came to the Rescue. 3. Mr. Zhu. The look on his face was uncertain. Although Mr. Zhu was part of the devil world, he did not care about the affair outside of it and did not scare off anyone. Therefore, the people in the human society did not treat him as an enemy. However, the young palace master obviously had more insider news. She knew that he was the maker of the devil-quenching clothing. Yin Yanli had always wanted to attack the devil world, but he was suffering from an extreme shortage of devil-quenching clothing. His people could enter as a spy at most. Therefore, the Devil Kingdom was the only place where Yuan Yanli could not conquer. The young palace master once pretended to be a demon and went in as a spy. She used to observe Zhu Duqing from afar, so she could recognize him when she saw him. If she could grasp Mr. Zhu and force him to make a lot of devil-quenching clothing, they would not need to worry about battling in the Devil Kingdom anymore. With a wave of her hand, her 4 subordinates surrounded the carriage. Mr. Zhu, why have you left the Devil Kingdom to come into the human world? Zhu Duqing frowned slightly. He did not often go to the human world, so he did not expect someone to recognize him in just a second. Nonetheless, he was a very proud man. It did not matter, even anyone recognized him. I can go anywhere as I like. Why does it matter to you? Since you have heard of my name, you should know how powerful I am. Go away. The young palace master was not easily scared. She smiled. I have always admired you. Since I have the honor to meet you today, I would like to ask for your guidance. I hope that you would be willing to teach me something. There was a thin sword in her palm. She waved it gently, and a snowy light was headed directly toward Zhu Duqing. Zhu Duqing was excited. He always liked to fight, but there were very few people who could beat him. Most of them cried and yelled at him after being attacked by him. After that, they would hide from him when they saw him. Therefore, he appreciated every opportunity to fight. When he saw that the young palace master showed him a weapon, he knew that this was an excellent opportunity to compete. He habitually became excited. Nonetheless, after a few attacks, he finally remembered that 3 ribs in his chest were broken by Di Fui, and he had not fully recovered from the injury yet. Therefore, he should avoid fighting for the time being. The tricks of the young palace master were strange. Her speed was extremely fast. Zhu Duqing had a pain in his chest, so he was slightly slower in action. Coupled with the significant reduction of his spiritual power, he was not the opponent of the young palace master that day. After less than 15 minutes, his robes had been torn by the young palace master, and it exposed a large area of his body. Zhu Duqing was angry. He retreated to a few feet away. Damn, how can you take advantage of me? Is it because I am too handsome? The young palace master ignored him and continued to attack. She wanted to catch him alive, but she certainly did not want to see him naked. Zhu Duqing was forced to retreat. When they were fighting, he suddenly heard a soft voice beside his ears. Go to the lead position. The voice came from Gu Shijio. Zhu Duqing followed her instruction and managed to avoid a fatal move from the young palace master. Slant into the koan position. Zhu Duqing crossed his foot and took another step. By walking 2 steps, he found himself in a blind spot near to the young palace master. He immediately stabbed her with his sword. Although the young palace master managed to dodge in time, The edge of the sword passed her neck and almost cut her head. She was shocked and started to sweat. She did not think that Zhu Duking's moves were so efficient. Nevertheless, she continued to attack. Go to the Rue position. Past the Qian position. Gu Zijia's voice continued to go into Zhu Duking's ears. Zhu Duking's body was like a puppet that moved according to how Gu Shijio instructed. He was able to avoid her attacks and managed to sneak in a few blows as well. Chapter 2353. The Devil King came to the rescue, for, in just a brief moment, the situation in the field had been reversed. The young palace master, who had dominated earlier, was now at the disadvantaged position. She was being fooled around by the strange tricks of Zhu Duqing. Mr. Zhu was someone who liked to get revenge. He was furious that the young palace master cut the cloth on his chest earlier and exposed it. Thus, he wanted to let the other party share the same embarrassment. In the fight, he finally caught such an opportunity. The cloak of the young palace master was sliced off by him. Mr. Zhu was sure to cut off a larger piece than what the young palace master had done to him earlier. As a result, her body was exposed. The young palace master's breasts, that had been tightened for a long time, were now released. Mr. Zhu was speechless. The young palace master had always dressed like a man, and her behavior was also similar to that of a man, so Mr. Zhu did not expect her to be a woman. The guards that the young palace master brought were also men. It was also their first time they saw that their head was not of the same gender. They were also stunned for a moment, and then subconsciously looked away. The young palace master hurriedly covered up her chest, and her pretty face turned pale. She rushed to the carriage. "Who is inside? Get out!" Mr. Zhu knew that Gu Shijio could not exercise her spiritual power for the time being. In a hurry, he also rushed forward. In his eagerness, he used a magical instrument and directed a silver cord from his sleeve toward the young palace master. Once it hooked onto the lady, he pulled the cord back toward him. "Come back, Buzz!" The young palace master's clothes were torn. "Pervert!" The face of the young palace master was crimson red as she roared. Mr. Zhu was speechless. If he said that it was not intentional, would anyone believe it? For the time being, the young palace master did not care about fighting anyone. She retreated into the jungle. However, before her figure disappeared, she left a sentence of anger. "Help me to kill them. Kill them all." The other 4 guards answered together, "Okay." These 4 people were the most elite confidants of the young palace master, and their kung fu was just slightly below that of the young palace master. The 4 of them knew a kind of formation to help improve their attack. They headed straight toward the carriage, ready for battle. Apparently, they also knew that there was a master in this carriage. Even though Mr. Zhu was an expert in martial arts, he could not fight with 4 of them at once, especially in his current state. A flute sound suddenly came along with the wind. The flute sounded soft like the wave of seas. The surrounding forest sensed the sound of the flute and creaked. Suddenly, a few green figures flew toward the 4 men. The 4 guards were shocked, and they all fought to cope with the green figures that flew over. It seemed that there were sharp leaves all over the figures. The Devil King. The 4 guards were knowledgeable enough to recognize that the Devil King was here. It was said that when the Devil King was fighting in the Shura Devil Kingdom, he used this tune and watched as a lot of his enemies perished in battle. Mr. Zhu's facial expression changed slightly. He subconsciously looked in the direction of the flute. Chapter 2354. The Devil King came to the rescue. 5. They saw a carriage flying in the distance. The carriage was silvery white, and there was a long-winged Pegasus out front. A man was standing in front of the carriage. The man donned a red dress that was bright like the clouds on the horizon. His black hair was moving like a waterfall. There was a mask on his face and a red flute that was across his lips. The sun was behind him, which made it difficult for the group to see his face clearly. They could only see a silver border around him. It was really the Devil King. When Zhu Duqing saw him, he felt his ribs hurt all over again. He did not know what his intention was, so the first reaction when he saw him was to run. Zhu Duqing could not care about anything. He raised his hand and opened a Rui gate. He whistled, and the donkey screamed and pulled the carriage into the gate. Zhu Duqing naturally also entered. The four guards were busy fighting with the green figures, so they could not block the path of the carriage. They could only watch as the donkey disappeared together with Zhu Duqing. After a short battle, the guards looked into the distance, but saw nothing but clear skies. The silver-white carriage had disappeared, and even the flute had also stopped playing without them knowing. The four guards looked at each other in bemusement. The young palace master finally changed her clothes and came out of the jungle. The four people reported the incident to her, which made her frown. The people from the Devil Kingdom would not easily appear in the human world. This time, the Devil King actually appeared in person. What was it for? What was his conspiracy? At a hillside, there were a green grass field and a small stream that flowed along the hillside. Zhu Duqing sat on the ground and wheezed. He could not care less about his image. When he opened the Rui gate, it almost exhausted half of his physical strength. When he landed, he even stumbled and found it difficult to pick himself up. When the donkey landed, it stood firm. It watched its owner and sneered. Later, it went to eat some grass. Gu Shijio came down from the carriage and looked at Mr. Zhu. She handed him a fruit. Come, eat this fruit. Let's rest for a while. The fruit will help moisten your throat. Mr. Zhu took a bite and stood up again. When he got up, he tidied up his clothes and hair. Then he frowned and asked Gu Shijio, "Is it true that the Devil King is following us? Damn it, is he here for revenge? Does he expect us to fight another 300 rounds?" Gu Shijio could not reason Di Fuyi's intention for being present again so soon. She just did not want to think about it right now to preserve her state of mind. Maybe he has other business to attend to, but saw that we were in trouble, so he came and helped us? Mr. Zhu obviously did not believe her statement. Does he have such a good heart? This guy usually does very sinister things. I always feel that he has no good intention. Okay, well, don't guess. Anyway, we have gotten rid of them. Are you hungry? Mr. Zhu's eyes flashed slightly. He was actually not hungry. However, he hoped to receive care from Gu Shijio. Therefore, he nodded. Very hungry. Then he looked at Gu Shijio desperately. The donkey, next to him, gazed at him despicably. Hungry? Liar. As long as he could absorb the essence from the sun and moon, he did not need to eat at all. Was he bullying the little girl who could not tell his physique? Gu Shijio smiled. Do you like to eat barbecued meat? I'm good at barbecuing. Mr. Zhu answered excitedly. Yes. Then he kicked his donkey. Go and hunt a few rabbits for me. The donkey kicked him back. Was he sending a donkey to hunt? Was he crazy? Gu's zigious gaze went over to the donkey. Oh, can it hunt as well? Is it that skillful? The donkey immediately raised its head, screamed, and ran away. What it said was, I'm going to hunt. I'm a skillful donkey. Chapter 2355. The arrival of Di Fui. The donkey hunted very quickly. After an hour, it already raced back to the two of them. There was a pheasant and a black sheep in its mouth, and even a rabbit on its back. It proudly placed its prey beside Gu Shijio. Its big eyes with double eyelids blinked as if asking for praise. Gu Shijio patted its cheek. You are so handsome. The handsome donkey became even more proud now. He glanced at Zhu Duqing and went to the side to eat grass. Zhu Duqing felt some resentment toward the donkey. If he knew that hunting for meat was a good way to get praised by Gu Shijio, he would have gone instead. Gu Shijio had begun preparing to cook. Zhu Duqing volunteered to help. He'll be your assistant. He helped to cut the prey, remove their hair, and start a fire, among other things. There were 2 people and a donkey present, but this donkey ate grass. Hence, they would not be able to eat so much, so they only barbecued the bird and the rabbit and put the black sheep into a storage bag. In another 200 miles, they would enter the poisonous swamp. The living environment was bad there. All animals were highly toxic and could not be eaten. This sheep could be kept for when they are there. It was now already night. The round moon in the sky was hanging up brightly. From time to time, all kinds of beasts' roars and growls were heard. It made people feel scared to be there. Fortunately for them, Gu Shijio put an enchanted array in the vicinity. On top of that, there was also a fire nearby. Those beasts were usually put off by the fire, and would not come near. Gu Shijio sat there, slowly grilling the meat. The red bonfire reflected on her cheek, which made it seem as though she was blushing. Zhu Duqing was sitting there, smelling the aroma. He seemed to be drunk. A couple roasting meat under the moonlight while a donkey was eating the grass next to them. This scene was actually quite beautiful. Gu Shijio turned over the prey every now and then, but her mind was clearly somewhere else. She suddenly thought of Di Fui. It seemed that he also liked to eat her roasted food, but unfortunately, they had minimal time together, and the chances of being able to have a quiet barbecue together were lacking. If he were here today, stop thinking about him. He already found a new sweetheart. He has nothing to do with you anymore. You don't have to think about him anymore. Because of her sudden absent-mindedness, she accidentally burned her palm, and it hurt. Zhu Duqing was immediately worried. Master, are you hurt? I have cream for burns. Come, I will apply it to the burned area. He took out a small bottle of ointment and grabbed Gu Zijia's left hand. Payak, a flying green leaf, suddenly hit the bottle in Zhu Duqing's hand. The ointment bottle shattered and sprinkled on the ground. Zhu Duqing jumped straight up. He took out his long sword from its sheath and screamed, "Who is that?" "Me." A person appeared on a tree not far away. The red robe he wore looked like a fire, and his stare was sharp as a knife. He was standing there with a smile and looked to be in a good mood. It was Di Fui. Zhu Duqing's facial expression changed. This demon was really like a ghost. How could they meet him everywhere? His fingers were ready to open the Rui gate another time. However, his physical condition had not recovered yet. It was not a good time for him to exert himself again. Meanwhile, Gu Zijia's heart skipped a few beats, but she quickly stabilized her emotions and looked up at him with a smile. I didn't expect to meet the Devil King here. Thank you for rescuing us just now. She bowed to him. Di Fuyus leaped straight into the field. The enchanted array formed by Gu Shijio was like nothing to him. In the blink of an eye, he had walked to the campfire in front of them. His stare fell on Gu Shijio, and he very seriously asked, "How are you going to thank me?" Chapter 2356. The Arrival of Di Fui. 2. Gu Shijio was speechless. As Di Fui was really close to her, the faint scent on his body lingered around Gu Zijia's nose. She stepped back and raised the pheasant that was baked in her hand. "Perhaps I can give this to you for now." Di Fui shook his head. "Not enough. Everyone said that the grace of giving water needs to be paid back with spring water. This life-saving grace should be returned with a fountain, right? How can it be repaid by a mere pheasant?" Gu Shijio replied, "What do you want me to repay you with?" Di Fui sat by her side and leaned toward her. "Will you marry me?" Gu Shijio was stunned. "You must be joking again." Under the bonfire, Di Fui looked really serious. "I have never joked about this matter with you." Gu Shijio looked away. This guy was a movie actor. She was not sure which movie he was acting in this time. In times of uncertainty, sometimes it was best not to respond. Thus, she smiled and did not say anything. Di Fui looked at her for a moment and finally decided to change the topic. He glanced at Zhu Duqing next to him. "Has Mr. Zhu recovered from his rib injury?" Zhu Duqing had been very guarding Gu Shijio, but now that his focus had changed, he felt more relaxed. He proudly replied, "Thank you for your care. It still hurts, but I have good physical strength. It will soon be healed." Di Fui sighed. "You are too weak. One hit can actually break so many ribs. You have not taken your body seriously. How can you let it be weak for so long?" Zhu Duqing was speechless. He now wanted to break Di Fui's ribs. Di Fui put a bottle of cream in his palm, which he retrieved from his robe and handed it over. "This medicine cures bruises. I will give it to you." Zhu Duqing was furious. "Go away." He also tried to destroy the bottle of ointment as payback. Di Fui was prepared. He moved his hand away in time and shook his head. "Mr. Zhu has always been a high-spirited man. Why are you so violent today? If you don't need it, then forget it." He kept the bottle back into his robe. Zhu Duqing remained silent. He wanted to recover as soon as possible and beat Di Fui up. With a serious face, he asked, "Why are you here?" If it was possible, he really wanted to kick him away. However, his skill was not high enough, and his physical strength had not recovered. He could only think about it, and hope that he could make him leave using words this time. Difui slowly pulled up his sleeves. I don't like people to owe me. Since I have saved your life, I am here to ask for something in return. I can let go of Princess Yuanyuan, Gu Shijio calmly answered. She felt that the reason Difui acted like this was probably to ask for a favor on behalf of the princess. After all, Difui knew Gu Shijio well enough. He knew that she wanted to tear out Yuanyuan's heart. He wanted to protect Yuanyuan, but he could not bear to hurt Gu Shijio, so he could only help her as much as possible so that she could return his favor. Difui was stunned. He looked at her and smiled. Can I treat this sentence as jealousy? No, I'm not jealous. Gu Shijio bit her lips slightly. Difui sighed. I would rather you be jealous. He said this sentence very softly, and Gu Shijio could not hear it clearly. She raised her eyebrows. What? You can do whatever you like. It does not matter to me whether you want to let her off the hook or not. I will not interfere. This time Difui said it clearly. Chapter 2357. The Arrival of Difui. 3. He pulled Gu Zijia's left hand that was burned earlier and applied the ointment to her palm. Gu Shijio was somewhat uneasy because of his words, so she was not ready when he pulled her arm. Just when she reacted, he had already applied the ointment. The ointment was cold, and it eased her anxious heart. She pulled her hand back, and her mood was even more unstable. If she did not know that he already had Yuanyuan, she would misunderstand that he was trying to flirt with her. Nonetheless, he was not someone who liked to flirt. Was it because they had an intimate relationship before? Or had he not let go of her yet? Was he habitually flirting with her? She was a little annoyed, and she did not let Kido guess other people's feelings. It was too tiring. Due to her current mood, the pheasant turned out to be a bit mushy, while the meat was rough. She looked at Zhu Duqing. It seemed like he just said that he liked to eat chicken, but it was not tasty when the meat was rough. At this moment, Zhu Duqing was staring at the chicken. When he saw her remove the pheasant from the fire, he immediately reached out for it. Master, I want to eat chicken wings. Just when he finished his sentence, Difui, who was next to him, had waved his sleeves, and the pair of wings on the pheasant was gone. Zhu Duqing glared at Difui, and then looked at Gu Shijio. All right, he can have the chicken wings. I will have the thighs. All of a sudden, the 2 chicken thighs also disappeared. Difui moved too fast, and Zhu Duqing could not grab it from him. He became furious, but he did not want to provoke the perverted Demon King. Forget it. I will eat the chicken breast. When he finished his sentence, he already had a piece of chicken breast in his hand. But somehow, all he could see in his hands were bones. It is said that eating different parts of the chicken can help supplement the parts of your body. Perhaps the bones of the chicken can help to heal your ribs. Zhu Duqing remained silent. He could see that Difui was here to pick a fight with him. Anything he wanted, the other party would grab from him. His eyes flashed slightly as he was ready to retaliate. Master, I want the ass of the chicken. He waited for the chicken buttocks to disappear instantly. However, Difui did not intervene this time when Gu Shijio handed him the part he requested for. Difui looked at his eyes quite seriously and said, This chicken but is good. It is suitable for you. Zhu Duqing was speechless. God, please come and strike this bastard. How did he not realize that this demon was so evil? If he could beat him up right now, he would definitely take his shots. However, with his current condition, it was best that he remain high-spirited and avoid a fight. Perhaps he should not be too fussy about the part of the chicken that he eats. In the end, it seems that he overthought. Difui gave him a chicken neck, 2 chicken feet, the chicken's butt, and its head. Mr. Zhu looked at him with grievances. This roast chicken was baked by his master. How could it be divided by Difui? Gu Shijio looked at Difui and was trying to get the chicken wings for Zhu Duqing. Nonetheless, Difui took the opportunity to prevent that from happening. This roasted chicken can be regarded as a kind of return. Gu Shijio was stunned. She did not want to argue with him, so she took the rabbit and tried to comfort her own apprentice. This rabbit is also delicious. I will bake it for you. Zhu Duqing looked at Difui just to make sure that he was not going to disturb him this time. Di Fui did not talk. He just sat there and ate the chicken wings quietly. He did not even lift up his head. It seemed that he would not rob Mr. Zhu this time. What he did not expect was that when Gu Shijio had just baked the rabbit, the chicken thighs and chicken wings on Di Fui's plate were finished. He lifted up the sleeves, and the whole rabbit was then taken away from Gu Shijio. Di Fui only gave Mr. Zhu the rabbit head, tail, and ass. Chapter 2358. The so-called life-saving grace. Zhu Duqing looked at Gu Shijio again. She was looking at Di Fui, who was smiling. This rabbit is also one of the returns for my life-saving grace. Damn it, how much benefit do you need for a life-saving grace? Zhu Duqing felt that this devil king was not that free to just come and grab some barbecued meat. Thus, he closed the fan in his hand and asked Di Fui directly, "What are you going to do this time? What else you want us to return you for your life-saving grace? Can you just state it all?" Di Fui looked at Gu Shijio instead. "Are you hungry?" Gu Shijio was hungry. She had not eaten anything, although she had been baking the meat for half a day. She was wondering if she should get the black sheep out and bake it. But with Di Fui's current mood, the whole sheep would have been eaten by him, aside from the unwanted parts that would go to Mr. Zhu. She did not like to eat those parts either. Hence, she thought that she should eat later. Things would not get better if he stayed for a longer period of time. She needed to rest quietly. She shook her head in response to Di Fui's question. "I'm not hungry, Bu Duqing is. I am roasting a piece of meat for him." She stood up and said, "Devil King, I will return your life-saving grace later. I have something to do, so I cannot accompany you anymore." Duqing, Di Fui repeated. It was such an intimate way to refer to someone. She used to call him Prince Nianma in the upper bound. When he claimed that he was her fiancé, she called him by his name. Unfortunately, she had soon broken up with him. After that, she always referred to him as Devil King, which felt very formal. Di Fui faintly smiled at Zhu Duqing. "So, your real name is Zhu Duqing? That is new to me." Zhu Duqing waved his sleeves. "I don't simply tell my real name to people." He had no intention to keep talking to Di Fui right now. Besides, every time he saw him, he felt a pain in his ribs. Seeing that Gu Shijio wanted to go, he immediately began to pack up. The donkey was depressed. It ran for a whole day and also went for hunting. It had not gotten much rest, but already needed to start traveling again. Therefore, when Zhu Duqing attached the carriage to its body, it kicked its owner's foot. Then, he turned and ran. It ran away in the blink of an eye and disappeared. Zhu Duqing was speechless. This donkey did not give him any face at all. Since the donkey had run away, he naturally could not leave for the time being. Gu Shijio and Zhu Duqing looked at each other and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. Zhu Duqing then looked at Di Fui. Di Fui smirked and said, "Although it is a donkey, it did not want to be tortured by you. Please let it take a break." They had no other choice for now. Gu Shijio sat on a big stone and meditated. She had to race against time to recover so that she could enter the poisonous swamp to capture the prize cure. She was sure that an intense battle would await her. Zhu Duqing was also exhausted. He wanted to meditate, but was afraid that Di Fui would bully him and turn him into firewood. Therefore, he opted to take a stroll nearby. Di Fui sat there, and he took out a colorful golden pheasant from nowhere. The golden pheasant was very strange. Even though it was skinned of its feathers, its body was still multicolored. After he slaughtered the golden pheasant, he took out a sharpened bamboo and placed it there. He then grilled it on a fire. He had a complete set of ingredients ready on hand. There was salt, cumin, sauces, and so on. He sprinkled the seasoning layer by layer. Before it was fully baked, it had already released a delicious smell. The aroma was so fragrant when it was mixed in the air. Zhu Duqing originally stood there silently to absorb the essence of the moon. However, this smell got him drooling. It stirred up his desire to eat. He walked back to Di Fui's original spot and looked at the golden pheasant's hair that had been removed. He then looked at the golden pheasant meat that was grilled on the bamboo stick. As Zhu Duqing was quite knowledgeable, the more he saw the chicken, the more familiarized he was about it. He was certain that he had encountered the creature before. All of a sudden, something flashed in his mind, and he finally remembered. This is the green phoenix. Di Fui looked up at him with a surprised expression. You seem to be very knowledgeable. Zhu Duqing opened his mouth slightly and looked stunned by Di Fui's remark. The green phoenix was the mythical beast among the three realms. Their eggs were precious items that practitioners in three realms wanted to obtain. The value of the green phoenix itself was undeterminable due to its rarity. The practitioners who obtained one would worship it like their ancestors. And yet, such a precious bird was actually baked. It was cooked. Such a waste. It was no wonder that the smell of the bird had attracted Zhu Duqing. It was so precious that it could probably help the person who consumed it to become immortal. Zhu Duqing walked 2 steps forward before asking, how was this green phoenix so small? He often heard that this bird could carry people, but its size really made it hard to believe. It should be bigger than a swan at the very least. However, this bird looked around the same size as a normal pheasant despite its supposed power. This is its smallest form. Can it change size at will? Nonsense. It was really a mythical bird. Hence, could one blame Zhu Duqing for thinking so? Besides, he did not care about his image. He smiled. I do like eating the head or feet of a chicken. As long as he could take a mouthful, he did not mind. Di Fui finally glanced at him. You are too optimistic. Zhu Duqing was speechless. He smiled and waved his fan. How can you eat it all alone? Di Fui's eyes flashed slightly. He looked at him and seemed to be in deep thought. He said something very softly, and Zhu Duqing did not hear it clearly. What did you say? Zhu Duqing walked 2 steps closer to him as he asked. Di Fui looked at Gu Shijiao, who was meditating. She was so deep into her meditation that she was not following the conversation between the 2 men. He sighed and waved to Zhu Duqing. You can come over. Zhu Duqing was afraid of him, so he remained very alert. He stood at the same place and snorted. What do you want to do? There are no outsiders here. Why can't you just be clear? Di Fui smirked, and his eyes looked watery. He simply stared at the man and smiled. Unfortunately for Zhu Duqing, his heart actually pumped faster. He thought to himself that the person in front of him must be a devil. Nonetheless, he still walked over to the man. What do you want to say? Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. He had no chance to finish his sentence as a 7-colored light was headed right toward him. He seemed to have lost his vision and wanted to scream, but it was too late. Even though he could still see, he was unable to move. He had transformed into an actual bamboo, a slender, green bamboo that was swaying in the wind. Di Fui, what are you doing? The slender green bamboo shook and blurted. Of course, he did not dare to yell so as not alert Gu Shijiao and let her see him in this form. Di Fui put his finger on his lips to signal him to keep quiet. Keep quiet. Do you want to wake her and let her appreciate your slim and graceful physique? Zhu Duqing wanted to vomit out blood. However, he really did not dare to shout right now. What do you want? He asked. You are too noisy. I do not like to be disturbed. Di Fui circled around him as he spoke. He then praised the man. Your posture is really different from the other people I know. He put his palm on the bamboo and transferred his spiritual power into it, so that Zhu Duqing could not say a word. Zhu Duqing was surprised by his action and was naturally also very furious. He shook his body and tried to restore himself to his original form, but he did not know what magic Di Fui used on him. He could not break out of it. When he was busy shaking his body, Gu Shijiao, who had been meditating, suddenly opened her eyes. You're awake? Come, eat a chicken leg and taste my cooking. Di Fui handed over a roasted leg to her. Gu Shijiao subconsciously took it from Di Fui as her stomach was growling. The aroma of the chicken leg in her hand could almost penetrate her limbs. This fragrance had already beaten the meat she had just baked. She could not help but take a mouthful. It was sweet, tender, and smooth. It was very delicious. She had never tasted such good food in her life. Is it good? Di Fui asked. It's delicious, Gu Shijio sincerely praised. Eat more. Di Fui encouraged her. Gu Shijio looked up and saw him sitting next to the campfire, smiling at her. The fire seemed to be dancing in his black pupils, and it was really enchanting. Her heart skipped a beat, and she moved her eyes away from him. She suddenly noticed the bamboo that was not far from her. She was surprised and raised her eyebrows. When she meditated, she did not see this bamboo. How did it suddenly emerge? Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. She looked around again and noticed that everything else was the same. She finally recalled that someone was missing. It was her apprentice. Where is Zhu Duqing? She was a little panicked that the man went missing. He went to find his donkey. His donkey is a genius. It can come back with just a whistle. He does not need to look for it. The donkey is too proud. It did not want to respond to him. The donkey was definitely a proud one. Gu Shijio stopped asking questions, but looked at the bamboo that seemed to be swaying even without the presence of any wind. Why is this bamboo here? Zhu Duqing was worried that you would feel hot, so he planted this bamboo for you. Zhu Duqing was a really understanding person. Gu Shijio felt that she had chosen the right person to be her apprentice. Have it hot. It won't be delicious if it's cold. Gu Shijio continued to eat the meat in her hand. The taste was wonderful. Without realizing, she had eaten the whole leg in her hand. I didn't expect your barbecue skills to be so good. I remember that you were not good at cooking. While I used to be bad, it will not always be my weakness. What else do you remember about me? Di Fui was looking at her when he asked the question. Gu Zijia's heart skipped a few beats again. She could sense that he was trying to make a move on her, and she did not want to be affected. She changed the topic. What is this meat? Somehow, she felt as if the taste was quite familiar, but she could not recall the source. It's a green phoenix. Gu Shijio was speechless. Do you not want to live anymore? This is a mythical beast. You will be struck by lightning if you eat it. Di Fui was surprised. He raised his eyebrows and spoke. Really? It is just a bird. When he finished this sentence, there was lightning and thunder in the distance. Damn it! The storm really came on time. Gu Shijio pulled him with her. Let's go. Come with me. There were a lot of caves in the distance. Gu Shijio already saw one when she was traveling here. It was not too far away, about 3 miles from where they were located. Chapter 2361, the so-called life-saving grace. 4. The distance to the cave was something Gu Shijio could travel to in a second using her teleportation technique. However, just as she grabbed him, a lightning strike was headed toward them. Gu Shijio quickly teleported. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had gotten into a cave. Even though a cave is supposed to be dark, the back-to-back strikes of thunder and lightning brightened up the area. 2 bolts of lightning seemed to be heading toward them, even though they were in the cave. Di Fui pulled Gu Shijio behind him and waved his sleeves. A multicolored light flashed and seemed to absorb the 2 bolts of lightning. Boom! Boom! 2 loud noises shook the earth. Gravel seemed to be falling inside the cave, and the 2 of them had lost their balance. Gu Shijio, who was behind Di Fui, could hear a ringing sound in her ears. Her heart seemed to be jumping so hard that she thought it would bounce out of her throat. The punishment for eating a mythical creature was very severe. It could even bring disaster to the earth. Even if one had practice to the level of a golden immortal, it was indeed a unique and powerful skill to be able to control bolts of lightning. Di Fui seemed to have absorbed those lightning bolts into his sleeves. Did he think that his sleeves were a universal bag? Sure enough, he was not ready to control such a powerful force. He fell backward and was naturally caught by Gu Shijio, who hugged him in her arms. She saw that his face was pale and his eyes were closed. He did not move, even though she was still holding him in her arms. Was he injured by the lightning? She was afraid that the lightning would strike at them again. Thus, she carried him toward the depths of the cave. The cave was dark, so she took out a night pearl to illuminate the place. She looked at his face again and then checked his pulse. Based on his external appearance, it seemed as though he was in a coma. Gu Shijio literally pulled him around the place as he lay there motionless. Gu Shijio was certainly worried, but she also felt rather confused. She had thought that she had seen the last of him after their fight. However, they were now running away together. What did he intend to do? As she looked at his body, she realized that he was still holding the green phoenix meat in his hand. She rubbed her eyebrows to try to ease the headache that she was getting. She removed the meat and cleaned his hand as she sighed. Not everything in this world can be eaten. One clear example is a mythical beast. Have you learned your lesson this time? As she observed him, she realized that his eyelashes were long and his lips were rather thin. When he was lying in her arms, it made her have an inexplicable feeling. The smell of his body was very captivating. The indescribable, yet familiar, floral fragrance made her heart pump faster. The two of them had not been close for a long time, and now she was holding him again. She had very mixed feelings about it. Since he had another sweetheart, she had decided to let go of him. Therefore, this situation was certainly not helpful. She took out a bamboo bed from her storage space and placed him on it. She used to be homeless in the upper bound, so she put some life essentials in her storage space. However, she was quite lazy, so she only carried simple things with her. On the other hand, Difui often carried very luxurious items with him. Chapter 2361. The so-called life-saving grace. 4. The distance to the cave was something Gu Shijio could travel to in a second using her teleportation technique. However, just as she grabbed him, a lightning strike was headed toward them. Gu Shijio quickly teleported, and in the blink of an eye, the two of them had gotten into a cave. Even though a cave is supposed to be dark, the back-to-back strikes of thunder and lightning brightened up the area. Two bolts of lightning seemed to be heading toward them, even though they were in the cave. Difui pulled Gu Shijio behind him and waved his sleeves. A multicolored light flashed and seemed to absorb the two bolts of lightning. Bomb! Bomb! Two loud noises shook the earth. Gravel seemed to be falling inside the cave, and the two of them had lost their balance. Gu Shijio, who was behind Difui, could hear a ringing sound in her ears. Her heart seemed to be jumping so hard that she thought it would bounce out her throat. The punishment for eating a mythical creature was very severe. It could even bring disaster to the earth. Even if one had practiced to the level of a golden immortal, it was indeed a unique and powerful skill to be able to control bolts of lightning. Difui seemed to have absorbed those lightning bolts into his sleeves. Did he think that his sleeves were a universal bag? Sure enough, he was not ready to control such a powerful force. He fell backward and was naturally caught by Gu Shijio, who hugged him in her arms. She saw that his face was pale and his eyes were closed. He did not move, even though she was still holding him in her arms. Was he injured by the lightning? She was afraid that the lightning would strike at them again. Thus, she carried him toward the depths of the cave. The cave was dark, so she took out a night pearl to illuminate the place. She looked at his face again and then checked his pulse. Based on his external appearance, it seemed as though he was in a coma. Gu Shijio literally pulled him around the place as he lay there motionless. Gu Shijio was certainly worried, but she also felt rather confused. She had thought that she had seen the last of him after their fight. However, they were now running away together. What did he intend to do? As she looked at his body, she realized that he was still holding the green phoenix meat in his hand. She rubbed her eyebrows to try to ease the headache that she was getting. She removed the meat and cleaned his hand as she sighed. Not everything in this world can be eaten. One clear example is a mythical beast. Have you learned your lesson this time? As she observed him, she realized that his eyelashes were long and his lips were rather thin. When he was lying in her arms, it made her have an inexplicable feeling. The smell of his body was very captivating. The indescribable, yet familiar, floral fragrance made her heart pump faster. The two of them had not been close for a long time, and now she was holding him again. She had very mixed feelings about it. Since he had another sweetheart, she had decided to let go of him. Therefore, this situation was certainly not helpful. She took out a bamboo bed from her storage space and placed him on it. She used to be homeless in the upper bound, so she put some life essentials in her storage space. However, she was quite lazy, so she only carried simple things with her. On the other hand, Difui often carried very luxurious items with him. Difui's body was certainly heavier than Gu Zigius, so there was a loud creaking sound when he was placed on the bamboo bed. She was somewhat surprised that he fainted right after being struck by lightning. She looked down at the motionless man and saw that his eyes and lips were tightly closed. Based on his facial features, it seemed that he had been miserable these days. Why was he really not happy? Although he had fainted, she could open his mouth a little to feed him water and medicine. Gu Shijio had checked on his pulse as well. Although 2 lightning bolts had struck him, it was not fatal. The reason why he passed out was probably that he was in a state of shock. He would be all right after he wakes up and takes some medicine. Difui, she called for him softly. The simple act of doing so seemed to bring tears to her eyes. She quickly turned away as she was afraid that she would feel again. However, just when she was about to get up, her neck was grabbed by his arm when she was unprepared. Gu Shijio fell into his embrace. The familiar scent that had always accelerated her heart rate was now in her nostrils. Her heart pounded as she was trying to get off the bamboo bed. Nonetheless, she realized that he was hugging her. She could not move for a moment, so she looked up at him. At the same time, he was looking down at her. It was a coincidence that her lips were rubbing his chin and, eventually, his lips. Gu Shijio was stunned by that act and quickly raised her head. Finally, she quickly moved more than a foot away from him. However, that was only the distance between their faces, and her body was still touching Difui's. Their gazes met, and they continued to stare at one another. "Are you awake?" Gu Shijio was panicked and quickly asked a question. Difui smirked. Although he just woke up, he was in a good mood. Yes, he did not talk much, but his eyes were focused on Gu Shijio. Gu Zijia's scalp was getting numb. She wanted to get out of bed, so she turned over. However, his arm was still on her waist. She was not able to get rid of him. Instead, she found that their bodies were now more tightly connected. His body was a bit hot, so when Gu Shijio lay on him, she felt like she was on a human stove. It made her face turn red, and she did not like being in uncomfortable positions. She did not want to push him too hard, so as not to cause him further injuries. So she slightly struggled and yelled, "Let me go." Meanwhile, Difui's eyes seemed to be filled with tears too. It had been a long time since he hugged her. He was certainly very eager to be close to her. Since they shared an intimate night, he had always longed for her. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. When he hugged her this time, the intimate experience flashed through his mind, and the blood in his body flowed quickly and concentrated at a place that had just been awakened. His eyes seemed to reveal his true thoughts. He called her softly, "Shijio." All of a sudden, he flipped himself over and was now on top of her. This posture, Gu Shijio raised her hand and wanted to push him away, but he had already started to kiss her. Gu Zijia's mind went blank, and before she could react, her lips had been pried open, and his tongue had gone straight into her mouth. "Hey, you." She wanted to say something, but before she could, her mouth was covered entirely by his. He seemed to be kissing her very passionately, so much so that the night pearl that she used to illuminate the cave fell to the ground and rolled into the distance. Chapter 2363. The so-called life-saving grace 6. The light of the glowing pearl gradually dimmed, but at a distance, it portrayed the silhouette of the 2 people who were entangled on the bed. It created a beautiful and romantic scene. His passionate kisses seemed to stem from a deep thirst. His body was so physically hot that it could burn her. Meanwhile, Gu Zijia's mind was still unable to think clearly. All she knew was that their bodies were inseparable, just like how it was about a year ago. It was so intense that it seemed like a movie plot where a couple was forcibly separated by external forces and had finally found each other. It was like 2 magnets of opposite poles that were brought together. The blood in Gu Zijia's body started to boil as well. Her heart started to experience a wave of turbulence. It was full of sorrowful grievances. The bamboo bed seemed to creak even more than when Gu Shijio first placed Difui on top of it. A kiss that she waited 1,000 years to receive. An embrace that comforted her heart. It was so passionate that her dress was disheveled, and his kiss came to her chest. A thunderous explosion sounded outside the cave. It shook the whole cave. It also brought Gu Shijio back to her senses from her blank mind. As Gu Shijio started to think clearly about the situation, she found that his awakened body part had been very honest about his feelings. It indicated his strong desire at the moment. What was this? He had another sweetheart and still came back to flirt with her. Was he trying to step on two boats at the same time? Gu Shijio could not accept this feeling and quickly pushed him away as hard as she could. This time, she used a lot of strength and almost used her spiritual power. Difui was not prepared, rolled away. Gu Shijio quickly took the opportunity to get off the bed. She stood up and found that her fingers were trembling as she picked up her clothes from the ground. She took a deep breath and tried to calm her mind before saying, "Difui, are you crazy?" Difui sat up. He stared at her as he spoke, word by word. "I'm not crazy. I understand what I am doing. Gu Shijio, can we—" Boom! A lightning strike seemed to hit the cave. Of course, the cave tremored, and Gu Shijio was not able to hear what he said. Damn, how did the thunder and lightning last for so long? Gu Shijio took a step back and was about to say something. However, the voice recorder spell on Difui's waist suddenly flashed and beeped. Difui frowned. He raised his hand to pick up the call, only to find someone speaking frantically. "Devil King, we encountered the Blood Crows. We are not able to protect the princess." Difui's facial expression changed. "Continue to give it your best. If she loses her life, I will have yours as well. I will be there shortly." He hung up and looked up to find Gu Shijio looking back at him with a smile. "Shijio, you don't have to explain anything to me. It's not necessary." Gu Shijio did not want to stay here anymore. She turned and walked straight out. Difui was speechless. He had a lot to explain to her, but the situation with Yun Qingluo was urgent. He must go immediately. The blood crow was the ominous bird of the Shiro world. They ate flesh and blood and always traveled in a group. The humans or immortals who were trapped by them could rarely escape. Besides having their bodies eaten, their souls were also taken. Chapter 2364. The poisonous swamp. Gu Shijio teleported and returned to her original spot. Dark, thundering clouds filled the entire sky, shielding the land from the sun. Peals of thunder accompanied streaks of lightning. A fierce gale sprung up, sweeping across the fields in a swaying motion. Leaves danced in the air, swirling and twisting in the gusts of wind. The bonfire died out in the wind, and only the bamboo tree stood unmoving. Gu Shijio needed to stay calm at all times in order to contain the poison in her body from spreading. Emotional fluctuation had to be avoided at all costs. However, she could hardly keep calm after what happened. Her mood was even worse than the wild storms. She could feel a sudden rush of blood at her throat. As soon as she landed outside, she immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her head started spinning while she suffered from multiple blackouts. She had to steady herself at the bamboo tree while trying to catch her breath. She needed to calm down quickly. Too weak to stand, she decided to lean against the bamboo tree and sat herself down. Time ticked by slowly, and after an hour of trying to stay calm, she spat another 3 or 4 mouthfuls of blood. Only then did the situation improve. She rubbed her forehead in disbelief. She wanted to slap herself. After everything they had been through, she was finally determined to let him go. Never had she expected that a hot kiss would cause her to completely surrender to him, so madly that they almost made love. At that very moment, she decided to forget all the misgivings and constraints. She only wanted to be with him and to be owned by him. She needed his love only to herself. She did not want to share. She trembled at the thought of her madness for losing herself in the moment. She never knew she needed him so badly to the point where she would lose control. Was she so madly in love with Huang Tu before? Occasionally, she would be overwhelmed by the illusions of her being in love with Huang Tu's day. She saw how loving he was when they were together, but those images were like dots that she could not connect. She never knew how they actually met or how they parted ways. Waves of disappointment filled her heart every time she thought about the fragments of her forgotten past. Had Huang Tu been with any other girl before? Was she jealous just the same? She was clearly a jealous type of person. She knew herself well enough to admit it. She was jealous of Yun Qingluo. She was jealous because of how well Di Fui treated her. When she heard the message on his directed audio spell and saw the way he reacted, she was completely disappointed. Grumpily, she found a sudden urge to kill Yun Qingluo. She wanted to kill Yun Qingluo because she was jealous, not because of what she had done. She was certainly surprised by the paranoia of her unwarranted jealousy. When did she become so irrational? She had been searching for Di Fui tirelessly for the past year and never knew what would happen when they finally met. Now, she was completely paranoid. Was she already in love with him? Did she love him because she thought that he was the reincarnation of Huang Tu? Or was she in love with who he really was, the Prince Nianma that she knew? These questions had been troubling her for a while, but with no answer. With a sigh, she shook her head. There was no use to think about it, as the answer would never come to her. It was completely unnecessary. Besides, he was already in love with someone else. It would only be torture if she continued to suffer from the unresolved question. She needed to stay away from the toxic relationship, regardless of which of the identity that she was in love with. Chapter 2365. The Poisonous Swamp. 2. She would never be able to share her man with another woman. Although the men of this era would generally marry a few women in their lifetime, she was not ready to accept the social norm. She would never be able to be so generous and share her husband with a few women. As soon as she knew that he had already fallen with another woman, she made a prompt decision to let him go. But was Di Fui still holding on to her? She did not want to think or care about it. She would only do what she needed to do. At that moment, she needed to stay calm until she could find the cure. Calmly, she slowly took deep breaths in and out. Finally, she was able to remain calm and keep her thoughts away from the turbulent relationship. She tried to examine her Boda's condition and was surprised. At first, she thought that her circulatory system would be significantly affected after spitting out so much blood. To her surprise, her body was recovering even better than before. This put her mind at ease. Needless to say, it must be the benefit of eating the majestic bird, the green phoenix. She suddenly remembered that she only had a piece of the bird, and the rest of the meat was still with Di Fui. She had put it away while trying to save him, so the meat must still be in the cave. Immediately, she teleported back to the cave and realized that Di Fui had already left. Unfortunately, the meat of the bird was nowhere to be seen. The bamboo bed had also disappeared. Did Di Fui come back to take the rest of the meat with him? What about the bamboo bed? It was only an ordinary bed made of bamboo. Did he really need to take it along, too? Or had there been someone else who came into the cave to take the bamboo bed away? She went around trying to observe the cave, but failed to find any traces. There was only a faint scent lingering in the air. Perhaps he had taken the bamboo bed away. Her heart ached at the thought of their intimate encounter on the bed. She tried to suppress the thought with a deep breath, so she would not overthink it. She exited the cave and came back to the same spot one more time. There was no sign of Zhu Duqing anywhere. With a sigh, she plucked a piece of leaf from the bamboo that was nearby. She was surprised that its emerald green trunk was strong enough to withstand the strong wind from before. The bamboo tree should be quite special. The storms had wiped away many big trees, but it had not even shed a leaf in the violent winds. The bushes shook a little while the donkey could be seen running out from a clump of shrubs with a big, round tummy. It was obviously full from all the food that it had. As soon as it saw Gu Shijio, it came running with its wagging tail. Then it looked at the bamboo tree. Gu Shijio was alone at the tree, plucking the leaves one by one. She had also peeled off some long, thin strips of wood and started weaving. Being absent-minded while contemplating the many matters on her mind, she never noticed that the bamboo tree trembled every time she plucked a leaf. It was even more apparent when she peeled its skin. She finally stopped torturing the tree when the donkey approached her. "Where is your master?" The donkey did not make a sound. Quietly, it walked towards the bamboo tree and gave a kick. It was trying to tell her that he was there. Gushijio did not get it. "Your master went looking for you. Haven't you seen him?" Troubled, the donkey did not know how to get the message across to her. Therefore, it gave the bamboo tree another kick. Unknowingly, it managed to hit a critical acupuncture point and turn the bamboo into the man that she once knew. Gushijio witnessed a very strange scene unfold before her. Wisps of green smoke rose into the air, and soon, the tree transformed into Zhu Duqing. His hair was in a complete mess, with some parts of it even missing. He was almost bald and cernarious. His robes were unkempt and disheveled. Gushijio had never seen him in such a messy state before and was shocked. Zhu Duqing noticed the bewilderment in Gu's Zigious big shocked eyes and was immediately at loss of what to do. His image was gone. Although he did not really care about his image in front of most people, things were different with Gushijio. Therefore, Zhu Duqing quickly rushed into the woods to tidy up his clothes. When Zhu Duqing finally returned, Gushijio was still in shock. "Are you really Zhu Duqing? You really are a bamboo monster." Zhu Duqing was already immaculately dressed, but his face was still pale. With a cough, he awkwardly corrected her. "I am a bamboo devil, not a bamboo monster. All the bamboo monsters are my juniors." "How old are you?" "About this. Honestly, I am not too sure." In fact, he had already been cultivating for tens of thousands of years. However, he did not want Gushijio to know how old he really was. Gushijio took a look at a green leaf in her hand. Then, she continued to observe Zhu Duqing. Had she been pulling off his hair? How did you transform into your old self so suddenly? Gushijio was curious. Zhu Duqing was too arrogant to tell her the truth about Di Fuya's mean trick. About that, it was all because of the storm last night. "I was trying to absorb the energy from the wind," he promptly explained. Gushijio did not know what to say. She had only heard about absorbing the essence of the sun and the moon. Never had she heard about absorbing energy from the wind. When did plants share the same feature as a windmill? Zhu Duqing finally realized that his answer was rather odd, so he quickly changed the topic. "Where is the Devil King?" Gushijio answered casually. "The princess is in danger. He has returned to save her." Zhu Duqing seemed quite relieved. He seems to care a lot about the princess. He gave away everything just to be with her again. Otherwise, judging from how wicked he is, I believe he would torture us, all in the name of returning his favor for saving our lives. I am glad that he is gone. Very well, then. By the way, he doesn't leave the Devil Kingdom vert easily. Why was he here? Gushijio shook her head. Perhaps he has some other matters to attend to. He is the Devil King, after all. Maybe something he needs to deal with something personally. After a long night, the morning sun finally shed its first streak of light on the field. After a night of braving the storm, Zhu Duqing refused to stay another minute in that place. He quickly suggested that they should leave. Gushijio did not object to the idea. Thus, they hit the road again. She tried hard not to think about Di Fui. She chose to believe that their previous encounter was merely a coincidence. The chances of them bumping into one another again in this big world would be really small anyway. Gushijio had a feeling that destiny always made a fool out of her. When she was trying to look for him, she had never been able to see any sign. It was almost a fruitless search. Now that she refused to see him anymore, they kept seeing one another. They had only met one day ago. Just now, they met again. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. At the poisonous swamp, many colorful clouds were floating around in the air. Under the light, the clouds moved and showcased their beautifully vivid palette. It was a rather mesmerizing scene. It was a very beautiful and yet dangerous place. Other than the locally grown plants, no other animals would step forth into this poisonous place. Chapter 2367. The poisonous swamp. Once a red-eyed golden eagle ventured into the poisonous swamp in hopes of finding food. It was known to have a strong resistance against poisonous gases, but before it managed to find any food, it had already suffocated and died as a result of the colorful and yet poisonous air. All the beings that lived in the poisonous swamp were equally poisonous. A small bite was fatal. There was not even a cure that one could use. Therefore, all the mortals and devils would avoid this place at all costs. Nonetheless, it was a heaven for all the poisonous beings in the world. There are the poisonous snakes, frogs, scorpions, and even centipedes. All these poisonous animals lingered around almost everywhere in the swamp and could hide easily in a pool of mud or the bushes. These creatures would attack any passerby with their fatal strikes. The swamp was a vast plain full of mud, about thousands of miles wide. The silver ring crocodile that Gu Shijio was looking for was hidden in the depths of the swamp. On one particular morning, two figures could be seen wandering around in the unfrequented swamp. They were wearing weird clothes with oddly shaped caps. The caps could cover their heads completely, showing only their eyes. Even their eyes were covered with a transparent cover. Their suits were tightly fitted. It was evident that the woman was slim and the man was strong. They possessed very powerful qing gong as they glided across the surface of the mud swiftly without touching it. While they were crossing the mud, a red, poisonous snake suddenly appeared from one of the mud pools and took a bite on the leg of the man. However, after a while, the snake let go and fell to the ground, seemingly dead. The man was, however, unharmed. The thin fabric of his pants remained unscratched. The set of clothing was strong enough to resist any forms of battering or scratching. Also, the clothing had the ability to counteract with some of the poisonous creatures. Once a poisonous creature took a bite, it would be long dead before it could penetrate the clothing with its fangs. Mr. Zhu, you are really an expert in the use of devices. This is such a precious suit. The two figures were Zhu Duqing and Gu Shijio. The donkey had no resistance toward the poisonous gas, so it stayed outside. Zhu Duqing was the one who prepared the suits that they used. Proudly, he waved the feather fan in his hand and said, "Of course." Exalted, he was finally able to leave the trauma of his messy image behind. Gu Shijio was sincerely very impressed. The poison-resistant suit was even more advanced than the one she saw in the modern era. The modern suits were able to resist any other type of poison, but were quite heavy. It was unlike the suit that she was currently wearing, which was unusually lightweight. It was as if she was wearing her usual attire. When she first put on the suit, she was still in doubt about the functionality of the light fabric and was unsure whether it could withstand the sharp fangs of the many creatures. Her confidence about the suit returned 2 hours after venturing into the swamp. You seem quite aware of the place and are very well prepared, Gu Shijio complimented. She had prepared a lot of medicines and antitoxins before she came here, but they were all useless. Zhu Duqing's suit was the solution to her every problem. His eyes shone with a hint of proudness as he responded, "I have been here a few times, so I roughly know about this place. Master, you are a woman who needs a lot of care. I shall take the responsibility of keeping you safe." He waved the feather fan in his hands proudly, acting like a man of noble character. He tried to make his words sound as gentle and loving as possible. Gu Shijio was dumbstruck. "Thank you," she said. She had a feeling that he was acting all weird, for he had been looking after her like a gentleman all day. All his words were kind and affectionate. She was not used to it. Anyway, in a brief moment, they were both in the depths of the swamp. The swamp here was very different from any other waterlogged ground. Usually, a swamp represented a grayish landscape that was waterlogged and muddy. Bushes were present at the sides, occasionally. However, in the depths of the poisonous swamp, all they could observe was the vivid colors of the land, just like the 7-colored pool found in the hidden valley of the Huang Long Mountain. It was a glorious view filled with an array of colors. Despite the beautiful sight, wisps of colorful and yet poisonous smoke would emerge from the ground every now and then. Like people always said, the more beautiful something seemed, the more dangerous it was. The colorful fog was very poisonous, just like the creatures that lingered in it. As soon as Zhu Duqing expressed his heartfelt concern over Gu Shijio, a rainbow suddenly emerged out of thin air. Find authorized novels in Web Novel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. The rainbow was a few feet long, with a head as big as the bottom of a round flask. Its fangs were as gigantic as an elephant's tusks, while its pair of eyes was shining brightly under the sun. The look in its eyes was so dark that it seemed like a void that could capture one's soul if he or she gazed into them long enough. The odd rainbow resembled a python, with an additional 8 tentacles on each side of its body. The tentacles were full of tiny little openings, like countless mouths that each had their own fangs. It was also very agile. As soon as it marked its targets, it launched forward and started attacking the duo with poisonous gas. Amid the thick layer of poisonous gas that was headed their way, there were many poisonous needles inside it as well. It was like an unstoppable storm was headed their way. Zhu Duqing took a step forward and moved Gu Shijio behind him. Don't worry, these poisonous needles cannot penetrate our suits. The man was so confident that he only used the feather fan in his hand to cover up his face. The rest of his body was exposed to the needles. Fortunately, upon contact, the needles turned into smoke and disappeared. After a round of poisonous needles disintegrating into thin air, Du Zhuqing seemed quite proud of his creation. These poisonous needles can never affect me. Before he was finished with his sentence, Gu Shijio suddenly took his wrist in a tight grip as she urged, "Let's go. Quickly." She quickly used her teleportation and fled with Zhu Duqing. The environment here was full of danger almost everywhere, so Gu Shijio dared not simply use her teleportation. One mistake, and they could both end up in the mouth of a beast. Therefore, she chose to use her teleportation skill and went back to where they came from. The monster did not follow them. There was no way it could find them when she used her teleportation skill. From a distance, they could hear the monster's long howl, as if crying out in fury. The sound was so loud that the ground started to tremble a little. There is no need for us to hide. The poisonous needles cannot do anything to us. Zhu Duqing sighed. Gu Shijio interrupted him. Quick, take off the suit. Zhu Duqing was obviously taken by surprise. His heart skipped a beat as soon as he heard her sudden demand. Soon, he realized what was really happening. Some parts of his suit must have been compromised, he thought. He could feel that the area around his tummy was somewhat chilly. That area of the suit had unfortunately corroded, while other parts of his suit were slowly corroding, too. Fortunately, he was wearing another layer of inner robes. Otherwise, he would have to strip off all of his clothes and be naked. Although the poisonous needles from a monster were not able to penetrate the suit, the poison was acidic enough to destroy his suit. The corrosion did not seem to slow down, and soon, his inner robes were corroding as well. Panicked, Zhu Duqing had no time to care about his image. He quickly took the suit off and used a cloth to wipe away the corroding part of his inner robes, in hopes to wipe away the remaining poison. The cloth in his hand corroded as well when he was desperately trying to clean his robes. If he had not tossed it away sooner, his hand would be corroded too. The affected parts of his robes were starting to change color too. He had to take off his inner robes. Chapter 2369. The Poisonous Swamp 6. If the corrosion continued, the next affected area would be his bare skin. However, should he choose to take off his inner robes, his flesh would meld away in the poisonous gas without any layer of protection. Turning back seemed to be the only option. They needed to leave the swamp as soon as possible. Nonetheless, they had spent almost half a day traveling to the core of the swamp. If they chose to return, all the walking and traveling would be in vain. Zhu Duqing did not want to become a burden to Gu Shijio, so he proposed to take a risk. The poison may not necessarily corrode my inner robes. Let's walk some more. Perhaps there will be a place where I can stop and change my robes. How many times have you been here? Are you sure that there is a place where we can stop? I have been here 3 times, but have never made it this far. Zhu Duqing had only been to the outskirts, so he had no idea how the depths of the swamp actually looked like. No way, she rejected, unwilling to take the risk. She had time, so she could start the journey over. She took Zhu Duqing's wrist tightly in her hand and said, "Let's go. We will talk later." Before she used her teleportation to escape with Zhu Duqing to safety, they could clearly hear a lady asking for help from afar. "Help me." Astonished, Gu Shijie was able to recognize the voice. It was Yun Qingluo. She had never expected her to be here as well. If that were the case, then Di Fui must be here too. Her voice was obviously trembling with a state of alarm. She must have got herself into serious trouble. "Princess, don't worry. The Devil King will be back soon." "Princess, you should stay in the net." "Don't worry. The centipedes are not able to penetrate the safety net that the Devil King has set up." 2 servants could be heard comforting the princess. In the background, there was some fighting going on. Apparently, all 3 of them must have fallen into a siege with the centipedes. Gu Shijie noticed someone mentioned about a safety net. Determined, she took a look at the corroding part of Zhu Duqing's inner robes. He still had 3 minutes before the corrosion started affecting his skin. "Let's go. We should help them." Gu Shijie took Zhu Duqing along as she teleported. As expected, she saw a group of about 18 poisonous centipedes in striking blue color surrounding 2 men and a safety net by the side of the marshes. The 2 men had geared up in heavy suits that were seemingly poison-resistant. However, they were struggling in the group of poisonous centipedes. Their kung fu was obviously very powerful. This could be seen from their every move, which remained unaffected by the weight of their suits. Every strike was high-powered. The weapons in their hands seemed to be specially created and were unusually sharp. While they were fighting the centipedes, they had accidentally hit some stones that were easily sliced into half. It was as if the stones were merely pieces of soft curd. The creatures had a stronger surface as compared to the stones, apparently. When the men tried to hit the centipedes with their swords, there was not even a scratch on their skin. The 2 men were still doing quite well at the moment, but it was a terrible fight. Sometimes the poisonous centipedes would leap and jump onto their bodies. They were only alive because of their suits. These centipedes were far greater than the normal ones and moved at a great speed, too. It was, indeed, a tough fight for survival. Moreover, these centipedes kept coming back in larger and larger groups. Tons of striking blue creatures kept coming out from the muddy ground. It was a rather creepy sight to look at. There was a white net by the men's side with someone seemingly captured in it. The one in the net could see clearly what was happening on the outside, but the outsiders could not peep into the net to see who was inside. It was Di Fui's precious safety net. The Divine Lord gave the precious item to him as a gift. It was able to withstand all sorts of external harm or poison. The only disadvantage of the net was its immobility. Yun Qingluo was the person who was safely secured within the net. She could see everything unfold very clearly from the inside. Some centipedes started to climb onto the net, and she was immediately terrified. Some of these centipedes were surprisingly smart. Instead of trying to go through the net, they buried their heads into the ground and dug a way in from below. They were going after Yun Qingluo. The wizardry barrier on the ground was not as secure as the net. Yin Qingluo knew that the centipedes would get her soon enough. Once stung, the wound would cause so much agony that Yun Qingluo would rather die. She knew about the harm that the centipedes were capable of doing, so she could not help but scream in fear. Chaotically, the 2 escorts from the palace were unable to take care of her needs at the moment. "I can help you to get rid of these centipedes, but you must promise me one thing in return." Gu Shijie stood on a tree nearby and offered them a deal. Shocked, the escorts were unable to tell who she really was, for her entire body was covered in the suit. They gasped in surprise while trying to find out her identity. They dared not act impulsively, as they believed that she must be someone powerful to be here in the poisonous swamp. Before the Devil King left, he told the men to take care of the princess and make sure that she was safe from any harm. Therefore, The escorts were determined to fight the centipedes despite knowing that they would not be able to hold on much longer. "Who are you? Why should we trust you?" one of the escorts asked while fending off the centipedes. Without hesitating, Gu Shijio used her teleportation skill and arrived promptly next to him. She released a fiery red needle and aimed it directly at one of the centipedes that were eagerly attacking the man. The needle did not penetrate the shield of the centipede, but was able to keep it back. Trembling in frailty, the creature immediately retreated a few feet away. It waved its tentacles around in surrender and ran away. Apparently, the centipedes were afraid of the needle. The escorts were convinced. "Under what condition? Let my friend have a quick change in the safety net. We only require a brief moment. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting." Gu Shijio told them her terms. Zhu Duqing then made his appearance for the first time. Although his face was concealed under a mask, the feather fan in his hand was his signature item. The escorts of the palace immediately recognized him, though they had never met before. They had heard about Gu Zijia's teleportation skill before from their comrades. Also, the Devil King had once reminded them about Gu Shijio. As soon as they knew who they were, they immediately agreed to her terms. However, they also voiced out their concerns. "We agree to the deal. However, the safety net belongs to the Devil King, and we have no way to open it. If Mr. Zhu would like to enter and have a quick change, you would have to wait until the Devil King returns. There is no need. I can open it." Gu Shijio added, "I only need you to cooperate." In the interest of time, the men decided not to go against her request. As soon as both parties agreed to the terms, Gu Shijio had nothing to worry about. She took a leap and went into the core of the group of emerging centipedes. With a few flicks, she scattered some powder towards the creatures. The centipedes quickly ran away. They were allergic to the powder the same way snakes were allergic to sulfur. In the blink of an eye, all the centipedes were already gone, and tranquility returned to the place. The two escorts were very impressed by what she could do. Quickly, they invited Gu Shijio into the net. When she was still with Di Fui, he once told her the proper way to create an opening and enter the safety net. It was an easy task for her. Once the net was open, Yin Qingluo could be seen walking out from it. She held her head up high like an arrogant princess. "It is you, Gu Shijio, I hate you," she said sternly. Chapter 2371, The Poisonous Swamp. 8. Gu Shijio did not really care what she said. "What a coincidence. I do not like you as well." Yin Qingluo did not say anything more. Gu Shijio was reluctant to waste any more time with her, so she proceeded to let Zhu Duqing into the net. Zhu Duqing had brought some extra poison-resistant suits with him. He went into the net and quickly got changed. Soon, he knocked onto the net and let Gu Shijio know that he was done. His suit was still the same, lightweight and comfortable. The two escorts were curious about the suit, so they asked, "Do your suits have the resistance against the poisonous environment here?" Zhu Duqing gave them a laugh and responded in a superior manner. "The suit does not only protect me against the poisonous air, it also works well against any sort of physical harm or animal bite. Most importantly, it is as lightweight as a normal garment. What are you wearing? You look like two bulky chimpanzees." The men were speechless by his remark. "Our suits are obviously not as good as yours. Why don't we cooperate?" A voice suddenly emerged from a distance while a man was walking slowly towards them. The man had purple robes, smooth black hair, and a signature ruby-red gem on a headband. The ruby-red gem had a rather odd shape that highly resembled the shape of a fox's eye. It shone with great brilliance under light and was able to catch the attention of distant observers. Also, he was wearing a mask in the shape of a fox's face that covered almost his entire face, except for his bright eyes and his crimson lips. His every gesture was unusually graceful. Di Fui had made his return. Gu Zijia's expression changed abruptly, but he did not notice. She did not want to have anything to do with Di Fui and his men, so she urged, "Zhu Duqing, let us go." Zhu Duqing refused to cooperate with Di Fui, too, for he was worried that he might fall into another trap. Thus, he agreed promptly, all right. He then reached out his hand and grabbed Gu Zijia's sleeve. Will you teleportation us away? Gu Shijio had the same thought, so she grabbed his hand and was ready to leave. All of a sudden, the purple figure flashed by before their eyes and squeezed between them. Zhu Duqing had to take a few steps back to make space for the sudden intruder. What are you trying to do? He asked in fury. The man who intruded was obviously Di Fui. Let's talk about how you should repay me for saving your lives, he frankly remarked. Zhu Duqing was speechless, while Gu Shijio decided to remain just as quiet. They decided to let him speak. Di Fui's terms were very simple. Both parties would combine into a team, and Zhu Duqing should provide another 3 suits to Di Fui's group. In return, Di Fui would be responsible for their safety. Also, they would work together to capture the silver ring crocodile. The silver ring crocodiles were known to be very violent and fierce. They were the most poisonous creatures out of all of this inhabitable, poisonous land. If Gu Shijio were as strong as before, the creatures would pose no risk at all as long as she proceeded carefully. However, her current level of spiritual power and physical condition obviously made her incapable of capturing the crocodile alone. She was not very confident about doing so, even with the help of Zhu Duqing. If they were willing to work with Di Fui, the success rate would be highly increased. She was pretty sure that they would succeed as long as Di Fui was involved. Gu Shijio looked away and started contemplating. She knew exactly which option was the best, but the thought of seeing Di Fui and Yun Qingluo together made her feel uncomfortable. Her jealousy had told her not to agree to his terms. Are you afraid of me? Di Fui raised the question. What should I be afraid of? Gu Shijio looked at him with a frown. Half smilingly, Di Fui continued to observe her without saying anything. Gu Shijio knew that he was trying to trigger her. She looked at him proudly in the eye and said, You are overthinking. I just hate being manipulated by you for the same reason again. Di Fui was relieved. I assume that you have agreed then. I have always known that you are a very sensible lady. Chapter 2372. Working together, Gu Shijio did not know what to say. She was, indeed, a rational woman. In fact, she could easily find many reasons to keep him and Yun Qingluo far away, but it would not be practical right now. Speaking of which, she actually thought that his attire was a little odd today. The way he dressed seemed quite familiar, like someone she once knew. She was mad at him before they met in the poisonous swamp, but seeing him in this attire managed to calm her down. She even had a sudden urge of rushing into his arms, just to indulge herself in his embrace. Certainly, she managed to suppress the urge. However, she could not help but stare at the headband that he had visibly placed on his forehead. She wondered why he did not dress in his signature red, which was the way he used to dress as the Devil King. The red robes were, actually, very stylish and eye-catching. Was he trying to keep a low profile? He was wearing the red robes just yesterday. Nonetheless, she felt that purple was a more suitable color for him. Purple was the color of elegance, rebellion, and, most importantly, grace. Zhu Duqing did not intend to cooperate with Di Fui, as he wanted to spend some time alone with Gu Shijio. The donkey's presence was still tolerable, though he was not quite happy about having it around all the time. As for Di Fui, Zhu Duqing refused to have him around at all. However, he could not reject Di Fui's proposal, as the deal was actually a form of compensation for him saving their lives. Di Fui had made it clear that the deal was the only form of compensation. Zhu Duqing could always walk away from the deal and shamelessly pretend that nothing had ever happened. He had thought about it. However, he changed his mind when Di Fui voiced out his concern. Are you sure that she can safely approach the silver ring crocodile? How much do you know about the poisonous swamp? Are you sure that you are lucky enough to find another place to change the next time and not cause her effort to be in vain? Thus, Zhu Duqing kept absolutely quiet. It was not the time for arguments. It was more important to focus on the plan instead. Zhu Duqing had a few sets of the poison-resistant suits with him, at least 8 sets in total. He brought extras in case anything went wrong. For now, he had to share 3 sets with another group of people. He took a look at Di Fui and asked, "Don't you need one?" Di Fui gave his sleeve a flick and said proudly, "There is no need." His robes were made to have a strong resistance against many sorts of poisons. The red ruby on his forehead and the mask were both made to resist the poisonous environment as well. Also, he knew about a special technique where he could control his breath and regulate his breathing to purify the poisonous gas. Therefore, he remained unharmed by the toxic air. Everyone took turns to change in the safety net. Yun Qingluo's face was as pale as a sheet. She did not talk much. As soon as she changed into the suit, she stood behind Di Fui while keeping a suitable distance from him. She looked into the horizon. As for Di Fui, he never looked directly at Yun Qingluo. As Gu Shijiao was very observant, she realized everything that happened between them. Were they having an argument? Regardless, she did not want to dive into it. After all, their argument was none of her business. She only cared about one thing. Where is Hao Air? She did not get to ask about the child last night. Now, she finally got the chance. In the Devil Palace. I will make sure that he is well taken care of, so you do not have to worry, Di Fui said with a smile. Chapter 2373. Working Together, 2. He gave Gu Shijiao a judgmental look, for she did not seem like the person who would care for a child of unknown background and origin. Hesitantly, he half-jokingly added, "He is our child. I will not make him suffer." Gu Shijiao only responded briefly with a nod. She did not feel the need to discuss the child's parenthood at this time. She was just overwhelmed by her guilty conscience. Moreover, it was not appropriate for him to talk about the child that he had with another woman in front of Yun Qingluo. Shouldn't he be worried that she would be jealous? Or was he using the child to trigger her even more, so she would obey him? Perhaps there was indeed an argument between Di Fui and Yun Qingluo as they refused to talk to one another at the moment. And maybe the only reason Di Fui invited Gu Shijiao along was to make Yun Qingluo feel a sense of competition. Her mind swirled with the many different possibilities. She had to stop. Gu Shijiao realized that every time something that was related to Di Fui happened, she always tended to overthink the entire situation. It was not like her at all. For now, she should focus on the search for the silver ring crocodile. Speaking of which, she wondered how Di Fui found out that she was actually looking for the silver ring crocodile. He seemed to be looking for the same thing as well. What was the crocodile for? She had to ask him, "How did you know that I was looking for the silver ring crocodile? Aren't you going to use its heart as the guiding herb for your antitoxin?" He answered. Hesitantly, Gu Shijiao agreed. Yes. She then threw another hateful look to Yun Qingluo and added, "Thanks to her." Yun Qingluo's face was still pale. Quietly, she pretended like she did not hear anything and continued to stare blankly into the distance. That is all that matters. Although we came from different paths, we all share the same purpose. Gu Zijia's expression changed a little. Apparently, Yun Qingluo was forced to be here. Di Fui must have made her do so. That must be the reason for their argument, she thought. The one who caused the trouble must be the one who ended it. Was he trying to show him how sincere he was in finding a solution? Was he trying to ask for her forgiveness for what Yun Qingluo had done, simply by finding the cure? He was unnecessarily thoughtful. Gu Shijiao was somewhat convinced that Di Fui actually wanted to be a friend, though they were not able to be together as a couple. She took a deep breath and answered smilingly, "Thanks for doing this for me. I shall accept your kindness." "All right. I see that all of us here share a common goal. What should we do next?" Di Fui looked at her and answered, "I went on an exploration into the depths of the swamp and realized that the place was terribly dangerous. It is surrounded by many kinds of savagely fierce and poisonous creatures. If we choose to fight them off in the core, it will be too dangerous for us, as we might draw unnecessary attention from other creatures. Moreover, the silver ring crocodiles live in groups. When one of them is under attack, the others will defend it. We have to draw the specific silver ring crocodile out of its group and kill it alone. Gushijio thought about his proposal for a moment. I can teleport. I will draw the crocodile out of its group, while the rest of you work together and attack it at another spot. No one was able to escape faster than her. She was the best candidate to be the bait and draw out the crocodile. However, Difui disagreed. No way. It is too dangerous for you to act alone. Besides, Yinxing Luo needs to be there as well. We will go with you. Gu Shiju looked at him in disbelief. Why is her presence required? Does she know about the place well? If Yinxing Luo knew how to make the poison by using the silver ring crocodile, she must have been here in the poisonous swamp before and managed to escape safely. She must know a thing or two about this palace. Difui did not say anything but looked at Yinxing Luo sternly. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.